Joel Sanchez with Crucified Life Ministries, and today we're looking at the Torah portion, Lech, Lecha. So let's get started. In Genesis chapter 12, verses 1 through 3, it says, Now Elohim had said unto Abram, Get thee out of thy country, and from thy kindred, and from thy father's house, unto a land that I will show thee. And I will make of thee a great nation, and I will bless thee, and make thy name great, and thou shalt be a blessing. And I will bless them that bless thee, and I will curse them that curseth thee, and in thee all families of the earth shall be blessed. So there's a couple of words here that I'd like us to look at. The first one is bless, when he says, and I will bless you. This word means barak. Okay, barak. And barak means to praise, to be full of strength, to bless, of course, that's how it's translated. And it also means to kneel with the emphasis of giving honor to someone. So basically Yahweh was telling Abraham, I'm going to cause your status of honor to be great throughout all of the nations that come in contact with you. And you're going to bring glory to me because of the honor status that I'm going to give you. So also it means it has the aspect that this kneeling, it shows a respect, a type of respect that one has for another. In the Middle East, you always see like the kings, when they meet one another, they go to shake hands, but they bow, to one another. It's showing a form of respect. It's giving honor to someone. So the next word I want to look at is when Yahweh tells Abraham that I will make your name great. Yeah, and make thy name great. This word great in Hebrew is gadal. It's gadal, and it means to be strong, to be exalted, and increase in honor and glory of a person. So these words to bless, barak and gadal, are kind of somewhat connected with their meaning as far as an honor status. Now, in the ancient Near East, what I've been studying is honor and shame. There's this concept called honor and shame. Our Western society has lost that. We don't have that. We have more of a guilty or innocent. If you're guilty, then you just do the time, do the crime, do the time. If you're innocent, then great, you're innocent. But in the ancient Near East, it was all about honor and shame. And this is what Yeshua did. Yeshua always honored Yahweh, his Father, in everything that he did. And when the Pharisees and Sadducees always came at him in public, to try to trap him, to try to cause him to say something that was not correct in his interpretation of Torah, they were basically trying to shame him. It was, what I refer to as the shame game, where in public you try to establish your knowledge is greater than someone else's, or you try to shame someone. But in every case, Yeshua left everyone with their mouths open, and he actually reversed the shame. In other words, if someone wanted to shame him, he turned the tables back around on them and caused them to look shameful, thus raising his honor status amongst the people that was there present listening to everything. So both of these words, to bless and to become great, have kind of similar uses and similar meanings. And it all ties into with bringing honor and glory and a respect issue, and basically making a name for yourself, not in a prideful or arrogant way, but making a name for yourself because of the one who you serve. And here also, this is the Torah portion that kind of everybody likes to, this is kind of a side note, but everyone seems to like to accuse Abraham of being a liar when he talks about Sarah being his sister. But if you think about it, or in my opinion, he did not lie. There's something in this story that's very interesting, because Pharaoh, Yahweh sends Abram to Pharaoh, and he sends him to Abimelech, these god kings. I don't really know if Abimelech was considered a god king, but Pharaoh, yes. The people looked at him as a deity. And Yahweh sends Abram to them, and it's an aspect, again, of honor and shame, because of the plague, or whatever you want to call it, the problems that came to not just Pharaoh but to his house when Pharaoh took Sarah into his harem. And then what we see is Yahweh, one of the reasons Yahweh sent Abram to Pharaoh was actually to contest Pharaoh's deity. And when Pharaoh's people saw that their god king was suffering, okay, anytime people would suffer in the ancient Near East, or some kind of tragic event or some kind of negative event would happen to them, it was always about the gods must be displeased. And so when they saw Pharaoh having the problems, and his household having the problems that they had, it was basically, they knew that the God that Abram and Sarah, or Sarai, served was greater than their god king Pharaoh. So again, I don't believe Abraham was lying. I just believe it was a situation used in the story by Yahweh to bring a witness to the people of Egypt, and to lower Pharaoh, his status in the eyes of the people in his subjects. So next, let's look at Genesis chapter 15, verse 6. It says, "And he brought him forth abroad, and said, Look now toward heaven, and tell the stars, if thou be able to number them. And he said unto them, So shall thy seed be." Actually, that's not the right. That's not the right verse here. Let me see if I can find it real quickly. It's the scripture where it talks about and Abraham believed, and Elohim reckoned it to him as righteousness. It's not in Genesis 15:6. I'll have to find exactly where it is. But for the sake of the video, it's the scripture where it says, "And Abraham," and he believed Elohim, and Elohim reckoned it to him as righteousness. Anyway, there's two words there that I would like to focus on. The one word is aman, which is believe, to believe, and the other word is righteousness, as tzedakah. We've been talking about justice and righteousness in every one of the presentations. So now we're going to look at this word righteousness, tzedakah. But first, let's look at the word aman. And aman, in Hebrew it's aman, it means something that is true, something that is to be established, to be firm, a state or condition of reliable or reliability, as in being loyal to a person or a standard. So that's what aman means. The picture that it gives us is as if a pillar or a support, like a foundation. The foundation of a house is its support in which the rest of the house is built upon. So this aman, when Abram believed, it actually became, by faith, I might add, not by a commandment or observing a commandment. It was by faith. When he believed, aman, it was the support, the foundation for the rest of the covenant, for the rest of the blessings and the rest of the honor status that Abraham was going to receive. That was the pillar, that was the brace or the support that Abraham's belief that it created. So when Abram believed, okay, it was as if he was lifting his hand. This is what really aman means. You lift your hand as if to take an oath to say amen. It was a serious deal. It was a life and death issue. So the word righteous, and it was considered to him as righteousness, that word is tzedakah. Tzedakah. And today it's kind of taken on its own little meaning, because a lot of people say, oh, this is our tzedakah box, which means giving alms to the poor. And that is a form of tzedakah or righteousness. Okay, it's an act of justice and righteousness. Giving to the poor, giving to the needy, the widows and the orphans. Okay, but really the definition of tzedakah means fair and just, innocent in the right, devoted or a devout person. And it corresponds to a person with a right standard or with a correct standard. A person who is actually living according to a written standard or some type of law or in accordance to a constitution. It also can mean blameless, sinless, or on the right side of the law when judgment is declared or administered. So this is what tzedakah means. So Abraham was declared righteous by his faith. Okay? Hebrews chapter 11, the hall of faith, if you will. You can look at all of the patriarchs there, all of the Old Testament believers that's mentioned, and not in one place it'll tell you, because they obeyed the law, because they obeyed Torah, it will say, by faith. By faith. By faith. It has always been from the beginning by faith. And your faith produces works, and those works comes through your obedience. So faith produces obedience, and obedience produces works, if you will. So Abraham's faith produced good fruit that brought glory and honor to Elohim. And faith that is available and ready. This is something very important. Let me read this. This is something very important that the Hebrew Roots movement needs to hear and needs to begin to function in this. Because in the movement, it seems to be about knowledge. It seems to be about what I know and what I can show off, how much I know about Torah, how much I know about a subject. And we're lost if that's what we believe. So let me read this. And let this be the banner from here forward for the Hebrew Roots movement. Faith that is available and ready to be put into action is alive. In other words, that's a faith that is living, breathing, moving, and functioning. Faith that is available and ready to be put into action is alive. This type of alive faith generates unshakable hope, able to see that which is invisible and grab hold of what was unattainable. So let me read it again without stopping. This needs to be the banner of the Hebrew Roots movement from this point forward, moving on into the future. If we're going to survive as a movement and maintain our relevancy or maintain relevance, we have to live our lives according to this. Faith that is available and ready to be put into action is alive. This type of alive faith generates unshakable hope, able to see that which is invisible and grab hold of what was unattainable. See, an example of living faith or faith that is alive can be found in Genesis 26, verse 5. And remember, I said to you, faith is about action, and action produces obedience. Or faith that is alive produces obedience. Well, here it is in Genesis 26, 5. Let's back up to Genesis 26, 4. And I will make thy seed, this is a promise that Yahweh gives to Abraham, and I will make thy seed to multiply as the stars of heaven, and I will give thy seed all these countries, and in thy seed shall all the nations of the earth be blessed. Because that Abraham obeyed my voice and kept my charge, my commandments, my statutes, and my laws. You see, this is an example what Abraham's faith produced. It was a faith that was alive, and because it was alive, it produced the fruit or the action of obedience. The word obeyed there in Genesis 26, 5, because that Abraham obeyed my voice, that's the word Shema. This is very known throughout, this Hebrew word is very much known throughout the Hebrew Roots movement. Shema Israel, in Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 4. And it means to listen and to respond to what you're hearing, or to hear, listen to it, and then act upon it. That's what Shema means. Then the other word is kept. Abraham obeyed, he listened and acted upon what he heard. Then he continued to keep it. He continued to keep Yahweh's charge, keep Yahweh's commandments, keep Yahweh's Torah, His laws, His instructions, His guidelines, if you will. And that word in Hebrew is shemar. It's very similar, shemar. And it means to watch and keep in the sense of preserving or protecting something. So Abraham's faith was not like this supernatural faith that many people preach about. Abraham's faith was a faith that produced the fruit and actions of obedience. And this should be a great example to you and I today, that it doesn't take, Yeshua said it doesn't take a huge amount of faith to move mountains. It takes the amount of faith the size of a mustard seed. And the faith of a mustard seed as faith that never stops, faith that perseveres, faith that obeys, faith that keeps the charge, that keeps the commands, keeps the statutes of Yahweh, faith that continues to move forward no matter what trial, tribulation, or test you may find yourself in. And if you have that kind of faith, then you will find yourself written in the history books just as those in the famous Hall of Faith in Hebrews chapter 11. Until next time, I'm Joel Sanchez with Crucified Life Ministries. Shalom.